All right, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we have a 25 Brackenhide Hollow for the first time, and we are Tyrannical, Afflicted, and Bolstering. So I think this is a good week to get one in because the Tyrannical version can be quite a bit harder, and I think we have some pretty good examples here of good plays and bad plays, and we're going to talk about all of those. And then a quick read of talents like always before we start the key. So on the priest side, we do have to take improved purify. That is for all of the diseases, and for the afflicted where I'm using a true mouse over macro. Then we don't need either mass dispel point. We just don't need it in here. I do take body and soul. I like it as a personal buff, but also on the second boss, it's nice to give the tank a little speed boost. There is a little mechanic we'll talk about where the tank gets punted backwards, and giving him a speed boost kind of helps everyone, is how I see it. And then I go straight down to the bulwark. I'm still taking VE, I just kind of like it. And then over on the discipline side of things, this is a build mainly to support all of the Holy Nova we have to do here. So a lot of pulls I'll open with dots as we're gathering a large group, and then Dark Divine Star and straight Holy Nova, where I don't even want to waste the time casting Schism, and maybe a questionable choice, but I'm dropping Long Schism, putting that point back into dot, and that's for a couple reasons. That's to help our trash pulls out, and then also to help the totem on the last boss. So the last boss of here, I'm not going to Schism the totem either way, but I will dot him and I will attack him. So I thought dropping the Long Schism, putting it back into dot is not a bad play for Brackenhide Hollow. And then we are taking Long Rapture and Shields, and that is really going to help us through Boss 1 and all of those frenzies. And then I'm still trying to get started up on Medify.gg. So please, again, if you have not given me a vouch yet, I would really appreciate if you would go on over to their website, make an account, and then all you have to do is check a little box saying I vouch for Disc. And that's that. It really only takes a second, and I would really, really appreciate it. Although I did reach out to one of their employees and kind of just asked, what should I expect as far as the process goes? Because it's been almost 5 weeks now, and I feel like I have quite a few vouchers over there, and I'm taking, lessons on my own. So I thought it would be a good business deal for the two of us. And anyway, so one of them replied and said, if you would reach out to me in a direct message, I will take a look at it. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Everyone cross your fingers for me. And quickly here, let's look at meters before we start the key. And first, let's take a glance at healing. So this is a really predictable spread. Every dungeon will read a little bit different, but we always want to see our atonement in the lead by a long shot. This is just how our class operates. The bulk of our healing comes during our Shadow Covenant. Even outside of our Shadow Covenant, our atonement is going to be our best bet most of the time. And what I'd like to point out, I've made this correlation before on my channel, is the relationship between our most important spell and our combat HUD here. So all of our atonement drivers are this top row. They're closest to my tune. Also, they are the biggest. So all of these spells are relatively short cooldowns. It is really important we play them non-stop, and a little bit larger icons helps me really keep an eye on those cooldowns, making sure these are always rolling. And here's our damage right here. This is a little bit more interesting of a meter to look at. And for Brackenhide Hollow, our profile is going to be quite a bit different than we'll see anywhere else. And a lot of this has to do with our newfound strength in Rhapsody. So you'll see here, Holy Nova is far in the lead. So a lot of this is Rhapsody, but a lot of this is just spam as well. So with all of these trash pulls, we're not going to be getting maximum value hitting our single target spells. So most often, we're just going to devolve into Holy Nova spam, and that's just how it goes. But so a lot of these groups are quite large, and it takes 5 or 6 seconds for the tank to kind of corral and group all of the mobs. So as my opener, I'm still reaching for Purge the Wicked. We can get a lot of value here. And then once the groups are stacked is when I will Shadow Covenant and Dark Star. So that's why we see all of our AoE on top here. This is just an AoE dungeon. And then the next 4 are single target attacks. This is not quite the same order we're usually going to see. Typically, Mind Blast would be above Dark Reprimand, but in a key like this, I actually prioritize Dark Reprimand only, and it's because we're trying to get the value of the dot spread. Things like Mind Blast and Death, I'm not really playing on trash pulls, only on bosses, which is also why Expiation is quite low. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the keep. All right, here we go. So important to note, this is a double
5,
priest group.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Repot. I'm trying to get a lot better at my potions. Still a work in progress. But they cost like a gold, so you should really try and get in habit of that. So we do go large here. Fade is really important. Also, in a sense, it's kind of important to hold on to it. So there's my fade. Delayed it as much as I could. And I don't think... Okay, there's my PI. There's my first potion. Rhapsody. Ramping Atonements, Ramping Harsh Discipline, Shadow Fiend, Schism, Shadow Covenant. Drop 1 Dark Reprimand for the spread. And then devolve into Holy Nova. Trying to stay in melee range for my potion. And if you're aiming for that DPS parse, you really have to keep Star on cooldown. I think generally it's not something I pay close attention to, but in an AoE dungeon like this, if you really want that value, you have to fiend for that refresh of Star. Yeah, the play here is Shadow Priest is PIing tank. Pretty nice, adds some survivability for him, and I'm on the Combustion. And I'm not targeted any with the Vicious Clawmangle, but definitely get my weak aura for fixates. Opening with dots. The War Scourge is the darkest red. He has the most health by a long shot. He is the clear standout target to focus. So that is where my Schism goes. I do 1 Dark Reprimand just for the spread. Working a Radiance midway. It looks like I went for both of my Dark Reprimand procs. That is fine. Refreshing dots. So typically coming out of Shadow Covenant, dots will be gone. So that's usually the first order of business coming out of Shadow Covenant. Yeah, it looks like my play there is I dotted, I Shadow Covenanted, I dotted again, and then I Holy Nova spammed. So I drop my Rhapsody on pull. During my Shadow Covenant, it recharges. Out of Shadow Covenant, I start Holy Nova-ing again. So I laid a feather out for the Shadow Priest who's doing all of the dirty work. And I do have PI again. I think I drop it here just for the uptime or the downtime. So 1 Dark Reprimand, Dark Star, Radiance. Yeah, I hit the Combustion. Second Dark Reprimand. Yeah, so that was about the same type rotation as the previous pull. I dropped Rhapsody, did all of my Shadow Covenant. Rhapsody was back, hit a couple Holy Novas. So I went to a second Dark Reprimand here just to polish it off, which is fine. But we do want to end this pull with a 3 on Harsh Discipline. It looks like that's right where I'm at. And on pull here is very particular. I paints up myself straight into Rapture. And we want to get these Raptures out before that upfront damage. And it looks like I did. So our focus is Trick Totem. We don't have that many kicks in this group, so that is where our focus is going to go. And it looks like on that first gash, we didn't need it. But the reason we want our Harsh Discipline at a 3 is so within one cast we'll have a proc. And a lot of times a proc is your best solution to clearing one of those bleeds. But we were fine. So I think I miss here. Yeah, so really the best thing you can do before you're polymorphed is penance one of the bosses. And that way you dot the totem that's controlling you, but I missed. Okay, so for second gash, I play this a little bit differently, but I barrier pinch up myself and go into Shadow Covenant with VE. And coming up here, if you notice my frame, we have a misplay from the Evoker. So I have the white dotted line coming from the targeted cast weak aura, and the Evoker gave me his shield literally after the attack ended. So I really, need, it's a team effort, I feel like, and I needed help there. Luckily, I got through it with a shield, a flash heal, and a life. But similar to playing Disc Priest, I feel like that shield from the Evoker needs to happen before the first tick of damage, and it almost seemed like the Evoker didn't see it at all, much less see it coming. So like where I preemptively put a shield on myself, he should have shielded me in that same moment. But yeah. Okay, so we're on the third round of bleeds. We have our Rapture back, and we're totally covered. Usually just a couple of flash heals is all you need on that butchery attack. And when it comes to defensives are very, very particular on Tyrannical weeks. So per bleed round, we really want something covering ourselves. So I open with Paints Up. I think I used Paints Up on the second, and then I used Wall on the third. And I think we're totally fine here because we kill the boss. But maybe the order in which you play your defensives is a little bit more lenient. But you definitely want something on yourself each round. If Wall is down, Paints Up is a personal. And then, yeah, I'll admit it, I don't feel like I fully know this dungeon. Maybe that's why I've avoided it on my channel. But I don't use that cauldron. I don't think I need it. What does it do? I think it just dispels a disease. We have a lot of disease dispels here. Alright, and this is a pretty big pull. We open as standard. I'm dotting the darker red mobs. Waiting for the Corral, Shadow Covenant, Dark Star, and devolve into Holy Nova. But pay attention to my health bar here. I'm at a 3 stack of the bleed. I have to give myself a defensive Dark Reprimand proc. I have a 4 stack. I'm in Rapture. I have to wall and Paints Up myself to live. And what I'm trying to highlight here is that entire time the Evoker sat on his Cauterize. So it's less than a minute cooldown. We really need to be playing at least 1 per pull. And I would say the threshold for using it is a 3 stack, and I had a 4 stack. So he completely missed. I don't think that is a heal mechanic. I think that's a mitigate mechanic, and that is the Evoker's job. But, yeah. I really think he just needs to improve his UI to see those things a little bit better. Probably a UI a lot like mine. I thought I'd be a good Evoker, by the way. I thought about switching. I thought I could be good at it. Okay, we have PI available. Shadow Fiend is out. Schism, Shadow Covenant for the Shadow Fiend. Dark Reprimand. Dark Star, PI. Now everything's out of the way, we just Holy Nova. And so one thing to note with these pulls, we have a lot of these lesser mobs, which kind of come and go. So when they're out, I Holy Nova. When they're dead, I let my Rhapsody bank and switch over to single target attacks. Here's a second Shadow Covenant for this pull. And if you're really aiming for a high parse, You need to pay close attention to when they pop up. And reserve your Rhapsody for when they spawn. Reserve your star for when they spawn. Yeah, when they're down, you definitely want to reach for single target. Okay, so let's see. I'm opening with dots. Getting the healthier mobs with some dots on them. Drop my Rhapsody early so it can recharge. Shadow Covenant, Dark Star. 1 Dark Reprimand just to spread my dots. And I don't even think I'm worrying about getting Harsh Discipline proc on that Dark Reprimand. I'm just using it to spread my dots. Yeah, so in these pulls I keep Penance rolling. No procs required. Just for the dot spread. And I focus really closely on my Divine Star to keep it rolling as well. I try and keep a couple of dots on the healthy mobs. But I'm just spamming Holy Nova, which is great. Okay, so I'm waiting for the Corral. Dotting some of the healthier mobs here. Putting some long atonements in group. Fade so I'm not on the list. Opening with a Dark Reprimand proc just for the dot spread. A Dark Star. Radiance straight to Holy Nova. So a lot of times too, I'll cover the group with Radiance just to allow me to Holy Nova. It's light healing, but it's not a bad idea just to kind of like put some in the group. And also, I don't know if y'all noticed, this is the only dungeon that really challenges my graphics card. I'm losing frames there on these big pulls with all the graphics. I have a 3070. This is the only place I've ever seen it max out. If anyone knows, is that maybe, like if I got another RAM stick, would that help? I know maybe reducing graphics would help. But would a RAM stick at all help in that situation, or is that not where the bottleneck is? I don't know enough about computers. Okay, so the same thing here. We have a couple of dark red mobs here, our oaks. Waiting for the Corral. Getting some of these diseases off my allies. Really healthy atonements in party. Get Shadow Fiend rolling. Schism for the Shadow Fiend. Dark Star while the lesser guys are up. And Rhapsody while the lesser guys are up. So we'll see here we'll have an interim where the lesser guys are down. In this interim I switch over to my single target attacks. Star as soon as they're up. Rhapsody as soon as they're up. And I'm just casting Holy Nova here. Yep, so now that they're down, I might put a couple of refresh dots out. And if anyone's wondering, I'm not really playing Afflicted. I'm keeping an eye on it. Okay, here's a potion, that's good. I think I'm a little bit late on this potion, but whatever. I am keeping an eye on it, but I don't know. I look at Afflicted as a way to kind of force the player base to practice something that they're not good at. A lot of people don't really value their utility spells and don't really play them optimally, so that's kind of what I look at Afflicted. Like, that's its purpose from the developer standpoint. I think they're trying to get people to dispel. So anyway, that's why I'm not doing it. I don't need the practice, to be honest. I'm going for that DPS parse, and these guys got it. But I think important to note, in my defense, I don't have a blind eye to it. I'm still playing it, but my global is just not required. But I do get it quite a bit. But these guys are on it. Looking at the meters, it looks like the Evoker and the Shadow Priest are doing it best. Good for them. Okay, so we have this boss. We really want to line up our AoE spells with the spawns of the ads. So that is the only bar timer I'm tracking. Looks like we have PI available as well. And with these guys, about the same order of business. I'll Penance to spread my dot. Star because it has travel time. And then my Holy Nova to polish those guys off. So there was our PI on Combustion, right on cue. Star early. Holy Nova. And this is also the boss where we have an opportunity to play Body and Soul to help our tank reposition. He does have his own spell, but I think it's kind of pro, like tossing out speed boosts like that. Yep, there was one. Yeah, he had his own. I think it's nice. So here we have ads. Penance to spread the dot, Divine Star, early because of travel time. Oh, we know that. And when it comes to Shadow Covenant here, I'm trying just to play it on cooldown to get the value, and it's just, it's nice when it lines up with the ads, but I don't really think you should wait for the ads for Shadow Covenant. I think you'll still get more value in just keeping that bitch rolling. Body and Soul the tank, I think he liked it. Yeah, and you'll see on his party frame, he gets a white dotted line when that boss slam is coming from the tank. Right there. So that's coming from the targeted cast's weak aura. It is so helpful. I have that spell loaded in just to kind of keep an eye on it. And that is what I'm using to time those shields on him for the Body and Soul. Alright, looking at the damage meters, I'm at 78,000, 79, 80,000, which is crazy. And here, I cause a problem for the group here, to be honest. I was not reading chat, and I didn't understand the strategy we were going for. Yeah, so my play is I fade and I sneak by on the left. But that grip just threw me the fuck off. You can sneak by on the left with fade. I'm sorry, or the right. You can sneak by with fade. That obviously was not a good example, and yeah, I cost the group at least about 10 seconds here, so sorry guys. But yeah, I think the play we were going for is the mage was going to bait. Oh, she died. The mage was going to bait and let us get by, but as a priest you can get by on your own. Yeah, just how it goes. Yeah, it made me mad to have a death. I try not to ever like pop off in chat. That's kind of borderline right there. Yeah, especially since I didn't pick up on the play. Whatever. This was 100 parse, they can suck it. You can also use fade here as well. I use a fade mount macro. And just zip right on by. So I do pot here, but I think maybe I should have saved it for the next pull after boss, but I didn't. But we have a lot of odds. We have a lot of ads here, and we have a really good opportunity to claim some DPS. So I have Shadow Fiend out, I Schism for the Shadow Fiend, spread dots with Penance, Dark Star, Rhapsody. And I'm pretty much spent after that. Looks like I got both of my Dark Reprimand procs. I've said it before, but I don't think in this video. When it comes to your Shadow Covenant, you really want to aim for 2 Dark Reprimands that are both procced by Harsh Discipline. And then after that, we really have to be comfortable with relying on our attack spells. So notice here we are in a Shadow Covenant. I allow 1 global for a direct heal, and that's a Radiance. And then the rest of this window, I'm just hitting my attack spells. That's how it goes. So I like to really only allow myself 1 global for atonements. A Radiance obviously atones the group. If you have a flash heal proc, that could atone you in the tank. Usually that's all you need. Or maybe all you need is maybe to refresh the renew on the tank. So yeah, I don't really talk about renew much, but it's something I like to keep on the tank when I can. Yeah, just situationally, I might atone the group, atone 2 people, or just atone 1 person, just depends. Yeah, with these guys, kind of like the last boss, you want to hit your AoE spells when the dogs come out. So you can use penance to spread your dots. You can use star, that's really nice. And it about lines up perfectly. Every time ads come out, your Rhapsody is recharged. So you want to do those 3 things. Dots, star, Rhapsody. Okay, just got PI. And next pull is big. Most of the group has low health. So we really want to front load this pull with our AoE only. And once these smaller, lesser little witherings right there die, we can switch over to single target. So Schism. Dark Reprimand to spread dots. Dark Star. And then I'm just casting Nova. Nova can be... Oh yeah, I'll talk about that. So Nova can be dangerous because as a ranged player, whenever you're in melee, it's just a little bit more dangerous. Okay, so my second Shadow Covenant just came available. Switched over to grab 2 executes there. Rhapsody on a group of 4. Both Dark Reprimands, both procced. So when it comes to these diseases with CM Party, that green highlight, I'll admit it again, I didn't fully know that mechanic until after I failed it here. But use it as an example, you know, if you fail something, I think the only thing you need to do really at that point is just look it up. And yeah, I failed something here, and I got to the point where I was sick and tired of like not exactly knowing what this mechanic was. But yeah, you have to dispel it off because another attack is going to be triggered at you. And that's what just happened there. So really sucks to lose to a mechanic like that I failed. Especially because that's where my potion was used. Rip. Anyway, we're back up. So also in my defense, after this key, after I learned it, I tried this key again to get a better recording. I couldn't get a better recording, or at least I couldn't hit my DPS that I hit here. But I played them a lot better, and when you have 2 disease dispels in group, it's kind of like you tag team that mechanic. So 2 go out quicker, like right here. 2 go out quicker than every 8 seconds. So you kind of need 2 people to tag team that. Okay, but anyway, we have a lot of lesser mobs here. I'm dotting the healthy ones. Waiting for them to stack. Shadow Covenant without a Schism. Dark Star. Straight into Nova. Schism doesn't matter here. Not yet. Yep, and that's about the best you can do there. So now we only have the bigger mobs left. I'm redotting. And I could have played Schism out of sync. It looks like I just held it. It's fine. So here's our second Shadow Covenant with the Schism. Picking out a couple of executes, which is really nice. Switched my target there to make sure I dotted... to make sure my penance hit the one with the dot. Yeah, so you never really want to penance a dry mob, I call it. And it also looks like I played PI there, which was very questionable. We lost a little bit of value. Okay, this boss, not too much to it. With bigwigs, I really think you only need to track the totem. And you'll see here on the tank, the reason I don't think you need to track the Decay Strike is because get touched. I don't think you need to track the Decay Strike, because I have that weak aura that displays as a graphic the absorb on the tank. You don't need to track the timer, you can see that. And also I don't think you need to track the timer because it's not that big of a deal. Your ambient healing can pretty much do it. So also we're tracking his energy bar. I have that weak aura in the middle of my screen as that red and black bar. We want to time our Rapture on the first one. And other than that, we just run Shadow Covenant on cooldown. When the totems are up, I think really all it needs is a dot from my penance. I'll star, I'll Nova, and then I'll grab a death on it. Yeah, so whenever you have ads on a boss fight, it's always a good idea to try and pick out an execute range. If you're missing execute ranges, it is in a way lost HPS and DPS. And I think right here we have a really good example of how I used it. Yep. So I got the death on the totem right after that mechanic, and it recovered all the health we needed. Yep, and on the second bomb, whatever that attack's called, that was my barrier. And also not a bad idea to wall on the first one. So whenever you're in a cooldown with just green output, it's good to pair defensive with it. Conversely, if you have something like barrier or rapture out, you don't always need the defensive because you have defensives. So, yep, you always want a hard switch. Here comes our next bomb, so I pre-coat and rapture. Got the execute, and everyone's covered. So I keep a renew on the tank going into my Shadow Covenant. Mind Blast first, Dark Reprimand second, Death third. That's kind of always the sequence I try and hit. Those are our most important spells to put on cooldown if we want to get them again, and that is the goal. So Star, Rhapsody, Execute. It also had a dot for my penance. That's about all it needs. And if anyone, I'll link. Let's see what goes on here. Yeah, so I walled because we have nothing. It looks like we had Zephyr as well, which is great. Got the execute on the totem to recover the health, and we're golden. Yeah, so when it comes to tracking that heal absorb, this weak aura is so damn simple and does it so well. I really recommend this. So I like to keep my bars simple. Health value, my shield value, and that's it. And then you have this little heal absorb value coming through the weak aura. It's really all you need. So that red bar is getting close to popping. Let's see what I do here. So I'm still schisming the boss. That's just fine. Star. Dark Reprimand after he's close enough to spread the dot. For that one, it looked like I did an instant Radiance to recover health, followed by 2 deaths. That's really more than enough healing to top a whole group from 0. That's just so much healing. But that was it. So no IO. I already had this key, but I wanted to put one on my channel for once, finally. And I think a Tyrannical key gives better examples of what to do. I don't think the fortified version is as hard, definitely tricky, but the Tyrannical side I think is really fun. I honestly don't like this key, but I am trying to get better at it. I think it's good to recognize your weaknesses and then you can work on improving them. But looking at the avoidable damage, I'm pretty low, minus that 1 dot that's not registering. And then my damage overall is 72.2 thousand per second, which is great. And that was probably my best parse I've ever had for Brackenhide Hollow, Bracky Wacky. And so, yep, again, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. I really enjoy the comment section and the interactions we can have. If you have any small questions for me, feel free to ask. I do pretty good at responding to all my questions. And if you're interested in a private lesson, please reach out directly. My contact is readily available on all of my channels. And if you've not yet, please go over to medify.gg and give me a vouch. It only takes a second. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, please check out my Patreon. I've been helping a lot of my patrons with viewer lessons, which has been really nice. And if anyone had like some value out of seeing my mouse overlay, please let me know. I think it's kind of nice to see where a lot of my spellcasting and a lot of like the intricateness of my keybind system comes into play. I think it's kind of nice seeing that. I don't think it's always easiest to read, but sometimes maybe if there's a poll where you want to just replay it 10 seconds and watch what my mouse is doing, you might be able to get something from it on a second take. But yeah, again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please go give me a vouch on medify.gg. And until next time, Disc.